So far on the channel, I've done regional variants of Pokemon from Alola and Galar, but I've yet to do a Paldean or Hisuian regional variant, so today, we're going to be running Hisuian Samurott. Rules are in the description. Samurott was actually the first Gen 5 run I did on the channel, so if you're a fan of Unova, go check that out. I actually plan on revisiting it along with the other two starters at the end of the year. If we look at the stats of our regional variant and compare it to the original, the biggest difference that jumps out to me is the 85 base speed. That's usually more than enough to outspeed any of the threats that may be looming later on, and the 108 base attack is great as well, and if you see this thing's moveset, you'll see why it's so busted. The level up learn set is based off of Legends Arceus since that's the game it debuted in, and I went with the level that it learns the moves at rather than what level it masters them at. And at level 11, this thing gets access to the second best badge boosting move in the game in Swords Dance. Aside from this, I've also added 5 new moves to the game. We start with only Tackle, but once we win the lab battle against our rival, we hit level 6 thanks to being in the medium slow level group and learn Aqua Jet. This move is water type quick attack, but I couldn't get the priority to work. I thought about just taking it out and putting Water Gun in its place since they have the same base power, but it's not going to see a lot of use after Brock anyway. I've already mentioned Swords Dance. We get Water Pulse at 18. If you're unfamiliar with games past Gen 2, think of this as water type Psybeam. Ceaseless Edge, its signature move, which for Gen 1 purposes is just a worse version of Slash, which speaking of Slash, we get it at level 25, Waterfall, which I put in place of Aqua Tail, Night Slash, Dark Pulse, and Hydro Pump. I know with a Pokemon like say Starmie, there's always the debate of should you teach it Surf or not, and for Samurott, we're definitely not going to be teaching that move today. In terms of TMs, I looked at Gen 5 Samurott and went from there. One TM that felt thematic to include was Horn Drill. After all, this thing does learn Mega Horn in later gens. I also gave it access to Body Slam. Don't try to tell me this thing doesn't look like it could Body Slam another Pokemon. It gets your typical coverage that water Pokemon get in Gen 1, and I also gave it access to Dig because Samurott can learn that in Gen 5, but you'll be a bit surprised to hear that I'm not going to be teaching that move to it today. And if it wasn't our solo mon, it would make a great HM user since it can learn 3 of them. I want to do Typhlosion and Decidueye as well, and they will be coming soon, but with an immunity to Psychic types and Swords Dance at level 11, I think Samurott has the tools to dominate Gen 1. So let's dive right in. We're going to be doing the minimum to Brock, only fighting the mandatory Bug Catcher before taking on the Rock type Specialist. Even though Aqua Jet isn't doing its intended purposes, it's still more than enough for Brock. Geodude surprisingly hangs on and just hits me with a weak tackle, as Onix gets one shot. The real prize at the end of the battle is hitting level 11 and learning Swords Dance. As we head towards Mount Moon, Samurott is going to stay on that minimum path, and in Mount Moon, I'm not going to pick up any optional battles either. Feels like a first in a while. And once I arrive to Cerulean, instead of battling Rival 2 first and gaining levels, I'm going to battle Misty. Because of her AI, she's never going to use any of her water attacks against me, and I think that's going to give Samurott the advantage, especially since we have Swords Dance. It's a bit unfortunate that Tackle is my only option at the moment to pair with Swords Dance, but it's going to get the job done here. Once I'm fully set up, it will easily one-shot the Staryu, and against Misty's Starmie, I unfortunately crit. Because of the turn 1 X defend, my tackles are going to be doing less anyway, and I have to 4-shot it as opposed to 3. Jumping straight into the battle against Rival 2, I didn't point this out in the Misty battle, but when we hit level 18, we learned Water Pulse, and I taught Bubble Beam over Aqua Jet after the battle as well. Water Pulse immediately puts in work 2-shotting Pidgeotto as it hits us with Sand Attack. Against Abra, I can take my time to set up Swords Dance because I plan on using Tackle against Bulbasaur, and I want maximum damage. After full setup, I hit through the sand, and I'm able to one-shot Abra and Rattata, and Sand Attack doesn't get the best of me in this battle, as I hit through the sand once again to one-shot Bulbasaur. As we progress on Nugget Bridge, there's only one thing to note here. Against this lass, after I knock out her Nidoran, Samurott levels up to level 21 and can learn Ceaseless Edge. On Bulbapedia, here's the description for this move for Legends Arceus. I've left out the strong style and agile style parts of this move because this isn't going to pertain to Generation 1. And here's the description for Generation 9. While I could have just made this a 65 base power dark move with no additional effect, I decided to give it the increased critical hit chance like it has in Generation 8. For this backport, because dark type is special, I'm going to delete Bubble Beam in place of Ceaseless Edge. I want to keep Tackle for now. At least until I get to Vermilion City, which is where we're going to pick this up at. We're going to be beelining it to the SSN, and there's only going to be one item I'm going to be picking up here, and I'm sure you can guess what it is. TM08 Body Slam, an immediate upgrade over Tackle, and combined with Swords Dance, you already know. Had this thing started with a move like, say, Horn Attack, I probably would have skipped this TM and gone for something like Double Edge down the line. And Body Slam puts in immediate work, one-shotting the rival's entire team until I get to the Ivysaur. While it doesn't get the one-shot, we do get Paralysis, and it's fully paralyzed on the only turn it gets in battle. I mentioned at the beginning of this video I wasn't going to be teaching Dig to Samurott, which would give me guaranteed one-shots against all of Lieutenant Surge's Pokemon. How will the water type fare without it? There are two words as to why you don't need Dig for this battle: Swords Dance. If this was Pokemon Yellow, it would probably be a different story, but I can set up twice on the Voltorb and easily sweep his team. No trouble for our Samurai Otter. As we head to Rock Tunnel, so this video isn't super short, I thought, why don't I answer some of the questions I got for my 2K sub special, since I didn't really get too many. Patel the assistant asked, congrats on getting to 2K subs. What was your first Pokemon game and which starter did you pick? First off, thank you, I appreciate it. And to answer the question, I actually got both Red and Blue for Christmas when I was 9 years old. I actually put Red in first because I thought Charizard looked cooler than Blastoise, and I chose Bulbasaur as my first starter. When I was younger, I had a subscription to Nintendo Power thanks to my mom, and there was one point in their issues where they would talk about Red and Blue, and there would be little guides in the back of those issues that would cover 2 to 3 badges and routes in between each one. Of course, sometimes you got a little extra with route exploration in the issues, like the Seafoam Islands covering Articuno and the Power Plant covering Zapdos. I remember reading in the issues that Bulbasaur was the best to go with per their recommendation, and that's what I did. However, I don't believe Nintendo Power had level up learn sets in the issues, because I didn't know back then that Bulbasaur learned Vine Whip at 13, and I fought Brock at level 12, and he wiped out my entire party. After that happened, I switched to Blue, chose Squirtle, and the rest is history. Boss Kaio asks, which run did you enjoy the most? Congrats, bud, on 2K subs. First off again, thank you, boss. I appreciate it. And I actually want to answer this with 2 runs. The first is my very first run, Hitmonchan Only. I point this one out because it was my very first run, and it's my way of looking back and saying, hey, I did it. I completed a run, I did the voiceover, the editing, and uploaded it. Even though it took me like a year to complete and it's pretty trash quality, you gotta always remember where you came from and where you started. And the second run I want to point out, from a playing and accomplishment standpoint, is my Slacking run, which propelled me to 1K subscribers. Originally, when I started my YouTube channel, I wanted to do Let's Plays of retro games while covering some newer titles for flavor, and after seeing folks like J-Rose, Madrybread, Coach Max, and Scott do solo runs, I wanted to try my hand at them. I started out by just doing 1 to 2 a month in between the Let's Plays, but after that video, I made the decision to switch to just solo runs. Maybe one day I'll make a channel like DwunD's Retro Corner and do like long plays of retro games. I think that could be kind of cool, or maybe I should just try streaming on Twitch more. For anyone still interested in any of those old Let's Plays, there are playlists of them, the videos are just unlisted. Elanther on Blue Sky asked, can you deadlift a Snorlax? First, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, let me know in the comments if I didn't. As far as if I can deadlift a Snorlax, Snorlax weighs 1,014.1 pounds, but if you cut that in half, it's 507.05 pounds, which yes, I can deadlift that, and for reps. Does that count as lifting a Snorlax? Robney76 asks, do you collect anything? And the answer is, sort of. I have quite the Funko Pop collection, mostly Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Super characters, but haven't added to it in some time. I also have some Yu-Gi-Oh! Funko Pops and a Detroit Lions Matthew Stafford one that my mom bought me for my birthday a few years back. I also have a small retro game collection with physical titles from the N64, PlayStation 1 and 2, which are mostly RPGs such as Paper Mario, Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, the Wild Arms series, Suikoden series, just to name a few. I also have titles on the GameCube, original Xbox, and Game Boy games, and I actually own physical copies of all the main series Pokemon games except Let's Go Pikachu. Speedrunner0218 on Twitter asks, what Pokemon do you really want to solo run but not solo run at the same time? Also, what's your favorite game to solo run? The Pokemon I'm going to use for my answer also comes from the game that I enjoy solo running the most on the channel at the moment. So for the Pokemon, that's Cofagrigus. I want to solo run this thing because I feel like it would be an interesting run with its ability, along with how much of a troll it is, especially on Shauntal and Ghetsis' team. I would also like to solo run some Pokemon from the Alola region, but I feel like nobody would want to watch a solo run of Sun and Moon, even without the cutscenes. But to get back on topic, I also don't want to run Cofagrigus because of its starting moveset. I'll put it up on screen for anybody who doesn't know what this thing learns, and if you've never played Black and White, just know that the first mandatory trainer you have to face has normal types. And if you're thinking to yourself, I'll just level up to 13 and learn Nightshade. Nope, won't work. They're immune to it. Which leads to my favorite game to solo run. It's Gen 5. I've always been a fan of Unova, and I like the challenge that comes with Black and White. Although I'd love to do some Black 2 and White 2 challenge mode as well. I've managed to answer questions all the way through Rock Tunnel to Celadon, so why don't we jump straight to the Giovanni battle. There's not a lot to say about this one. Water Pulse one-shots the rock types, and Ceaseless Edge surprisingly one-shots Kangaskhan. That's a nice sight to see. I'm gonna head immediately to Erika's gym to battle her. You might think this is crazy trying to take her on with a water type this early, but I have a plan. I hope Victory Bell cooperates though. I'm going to freeze frame it here so I can talk about what I hope happens. Turn 1, I set up Swords Dance. Victory Bell then goes for something like Wrap or one of its powder moves and misses. And then I go for Body Slam one-shotting it. Now, if it goes for Razor Leaf, I can survive one, and only one. And unfortunately in this battle, it goes for Sleep Powder, snoozing Samurott, who gets cut up by grass in its sleep, giving us our first reset of the run. After one more quick reset where the exact same thing happened, I decided to pop rare candies to 35 to get over a damage rounding threshold and to see if it made any difference. Body Slam is still a 2-shot on Victory Bell without setup, and this time it goes for Razor Leaf turn 1. I can knock it out the next turn and move on to Tangela. Against this thing, I wanted to set up 2 Swords Dance, but accidentally set up a 3rd. And with full setup, I can easily one-shot the Tangela along with the following Vileplume. 4 badges down. Rival battle at Pokémon Tower time. I didn't bother healing after Erika, but I still one-shot Pidgeotto with Body Slam, and we level up to 36 and can learn Night Slash. Samurott normally learns this move upon evolution, so I stuck it here, and we're going to be getting rid of Ceaseless Edge for it, and Night Slash is going to be our move of choice for the remainder of the battle, one-shotting the rest of his team. As I head through Pokémon Tower, the channelers are no match for Samurott and Night Slash, but we have to decide where to go next, and it's a no-brainer to me. We're going to head to Silphco. I am going to make a pit stop to the 10th floor and battle the Rocket Grunt for the Carbos and Rare Candy, and then I'm going to beeline it straight to Rival 5. No optional trainers, only the Keycard Grunt. And while the TM for Swords Dance is here, and I could pick it up in case I want to replace it and teach it later, why would I? In this battle, there are 2, potentially 3 Pokemon that could cause a problem for Samurott. The first is Pidgeot because it still has Sand Attack, which it does go for, but misses. And after we knock it out, this will lead us to a potential problem in Gyarados. If we don't one-shot it, it can hit us with Dragon Rage potentially, which even though it only does 40 HP of damage, could be a difference maker further down the line. While Night Slash doesn't one-shot it, it just goes for Bite doing pathetic damage. I can knock it out, then on the following Growlithe, I can set up Swords Dance as it just hits me with Takedown and goes for Roar, although I could have also set up on Alakazam, which speaking of Alakazam, Confusion can't affect me, and it gets one-shot by Body Slam, and after we knock it out, we level up to level 40 and can learn Dark Pulse. So long Night Slash, it was nice knowing you. Last is Venusaur. As long as Body Slam doesn't get a critical hit, we're going to one-shot this thing. I don't want a Lowland Sandslash luck, which we don't get, and Venusaur goes down. Giovanni's next, and after setting up twice on Nidorino, I'm going to begin my sweep. I one-shot his entire team except for the Nidoqueen. It surprisingly hangs on from a waterfall, and thankfully its Body Slam and Retaliation doesn't paralyze me or crit. No intro for Sabrina this week. Set up once and sweep her team. It's that easy. Once I arrive in Fuchsia, I immediately head to the Safari Zone to pick up the final HMs of the run, because I do want to get the Warden Candy. Since this is a first playthrough, I do like to pick that up, and in a second playthrough I can probably skip that one, because Samurott is dominant. And of course the domination is going to continue against the jugglers in Koga's gym, but how will Samurott fare against the Ninja Master himself? Going into this battle, I wasn't sure which Pokemon was best to set up against because the Koffing's no Smokescreen and the Muck knows Minimize. My thought process was to knock out the first Koffing, maybe set up on Muck, and if I don't, set up on the second Koffing. Unfortunately, Waterfall doesn't knock it out, and it hits me with Smokescreen. At this point, I've got nothing to lose. I set up a Swords Dance and knock it out on the next turn. Muck comes out and it barely hangs on from a Body Slam as Koga uses an X attack. I set up an additional Swords Dance because if Muck is holding on from a Body Slam, Weezing will definitely hold on. And even though the first Koffing hit me with a Smokescreen, I have yet to miss an attack as I knock out Muck and the following Koffing moving on to Weezing. Even after 2 Swords Dance, it barely hangs on from Body Slam. And what's it going to do now? I was fully expecting it to blow up, but it chooses Smog, and I hit through the smoke once again to knock out Koga's ace, earning me the Soul Badge. We're on to Cinnabar Island to face Blaine and Giovanni soon after, but since we're a water type, you already know how those battles are going to go. One thing to note, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but I skipped the Ice Beam TM and Celadon, and instead, I'm going to get Blizzard. I've also skipped picking up PP ups along the way because Blizzard is only needed for one trainer, who you can already guess. But before we can talk about that trainer, we've got to talk about Blaine, which there isn't much to say. Waterfall sweeps his entire team except for the Arcanine. Waterfall is a 2-shot on it as it just misses Takedown. Let's move right on to Giovanni. And this time, against his ground-type Pokemon, Waterfall does get the one-shot sweep. Rival before the league. Pidgeot is no longer the problem it was in the Rival 5 battle because it no longer has Sand Attack. I can one-shot it and the following Rhyhorn before moving on to Gyarados. This is his second most problematic Pokemon because it still has Dragon Rage and I have to 3-shot it with Dark Pulse, potentially taking 80 HP of damage along the way unless I crit. Luckily for me, he chooses Bite one turn, doing pathetic damage. I level up going into the Growlithe, whom I one-shot, and against Alakazam, I'm going to fully set up to +6 because none of its attacks can affect me. After I knock it out, I move on to his Ace Venusaur, and now I just need to not crit because Razor Leaf will probably take me out from this HP. I don't, and his ace falls. I do want to note 2 things in Victory Road. The first is that I'm going to skip the candy, and the second is that I pick up 3 additional battles. Watching this back, I should have just skipped them to save some time, but it's something I can clean up in the second playthrough. The first trainer is this juggler with a single Mr. Mime. The second is this cool trainer with a Parasect, Dugong, and Chansey. I like to battle her because she's a great experience yield. And the last is this cool trainer with an all-water type team. These 3 battles allow Samurott to reach level 50, and I have 7 candies in my bag for the league. But again, watching this back, I think I could have skipped these battles, used 3 candies before Lorelei, and then probably just use 1 before Agatha, 1 before Lance, and 2 before the champion. But again, we can clean that up later. Let's take on the league. Lorelei is first. As I set up to +6, Dugong misses all 3 of its growls. You can't draw it up better than that. Cloyster, even at +6, hangs on from a Body Slam and wastes my time with Spike Cannon. Slowbro also hangs on, but just goes for Withdraw. And as for Jinx and Lapras, they get one shot, we can just move on. Up next is Bruno, and I didn't bother healing or saving before this one. Machamp and Hitmonlee could potentially be problems, both with very high physical attack, decent fighting moves, and my dark typing staring them right in the face, not liking the sound of either. I set up to +6 on the first Onix though, and Body Slam and Waterfall are enough to take care of his team. Agatha is next, and prior to starting this run, I was going back and forth between Night Slash and Dark Pulse. Do I want the guaranteed crits that will probably one-shot her ghosts and two-shot other potential problem Pokemon, or do I roll the dice with Dark Pulse's higher base power and flinch potential? Well, I get some great luck against the first Gengar, critting it and one-shotting it, but then my luck takes a turn against Golbat. It hangs on from a Dark Pulse and confuses me, and I hit myself 3 times in a row. Once I finally do break through, Body Slam fails to get the KO as Agatha uses a Super Potion, but I snap out of confusion and take it out on the next turn. Dark Pulse doesn't one-shot Haunter, but she uses another retroactive Super Potion, allowing me to take it out on the next turn. Against Arbok, I need a flinch because I don't want this thing going for Glare, which I do get, allowing me to safely two-shot it, moving on to the final Gengar. It outspeeds me and confuses me, but luck is on my side now, as I don't hit myself and two-shot her ace. Before Lance, I'm going to use 1 candy to bring myself to 55 over a damage rounding threshold. I was also supposed to teach Blizzard as well, but forgot. Hopefully this doesn't come back to bite me in the ass. I start setting up on Gyarados, as it uses Dragon Rage, dealing 80 HP in total before I attack it. Body Slam fails to get the knockout as Lance uses a Hyper Potion. I roll the dice with Body Slam again, hoping for a better roll, which I get, knocking out his lead. I then knock out the first Dragonair, while the second barely hangs on and hits me with Hyper Beam, leaving me with a nice amount of HP for the final 2 Pokemon. Waterfall one-shots Aerodactyl, and last is Dragonite. I'm gonna freeze frame it here for a second. Since both Gyarados and Dragonair hung on from a Body Slam, I know Dragonite will as well, and I need one of 3 things to happen. Body Slam gets paralysis and it's fully paralyzed on the next turn. It goes for Slam or Hyper Beam and misses, or it goes for Barrier. Samurott should still be able to knock it out if it does this. I do have Dark Pulse as a second option as well for neutral damage. Body Slam doesn't cause paralysis, but Lance uses a Hyper Potion, so I have a second chance. My second also doesn't. Lance retaliates with Hyper Beam, getting a crit and knocking me out, giving me my 3rd reset. I make sure to teach Blizzard before this next attempt, and look how much better things go. I'm able to set up to +6 due to Gyarados missing, and then hitting a Hyper Beam and then having to recharge. I then one-shot it, one-shot the Dragonair, one-shot the second Dragonair, one-shot Aerodactyl with Blizzard, and against Dragonite I should have just ended it with Blizzard, but I go for Body Slam and get a critical hit, just my luck. But it just goes for Slam, not doing a lot of damage, and I take it out on the next turn. Before the champion, I have 6 candies in my bag. I just popped all of them just cuz. It's time for Samurott to clock in and see if it can beat Galarian Rapidash's time from last week. Pidgeot is first and it gets wiped out by a Blizzard. Against Alakazam, I'm going to set up to +6. I have to say, it's great when this thing isn't a problem in a run. Once I'm fully set up, Body Slam and Blizzard are going to one-shot every single one of his Pokemon up to Venusaur, and right on cue, I go for Body Slam and crit, but I do get a paralysis. And at this moment, I thought, what is this thing going to possibly use? It chooses Mega Drain, dealing pathetic damage, and the HP it healed won't save it from Body Slam, as his ace falls, winning us the run. Samurott clocks in with a real time of 37 minutes and 44 seconds, with 3 resets at level 63 and an in-game time of 2 hours and 24 minutes. Now originally I was going to leave this one be, but I feel like we can beat Galarian Rapidash and claim the top spot. I dove in for a second playthrough. Now let's see what I was able to do. The first change I implemented was after Brock. When I go to the Pewter Mart, I'm going to buy an escape rope so I can skip picking up the one in Mount Moon and the rare candy there. Against Rival 2, I forgot to heal before this battle, and I thought it would be my first reset because of Pidgeotto hitting me with Sand Attack, but like my first attempt, I set up on the Abra and Tackle just does its thing, only missing once. Let's jump ahead to Celadon City and Erika. To this point, I've only skipped the Gentleman Candy. I'll try to cover the skip candies as I come to them. This time, in the very first battle against her, Victory Bell doesn't go for a turn 1 Sleep Powder, allowing Body Slam to get the 2-shot, and once again I can set up on Tangela and one-shot her remaining team. But speaking of grass types, the rivals Venusaur and Silphco, which I skipped the 10th floor candy, I'm set up to +6, and Body Slam crits. This thing retaliates with Razor Leaf. I thought for sure this was going to be my first reset, but Samurott hangs on with 24 hit points remaining, allowing me to knock it out on the next turn. But unfortunately, my first reset comes at the hands of Koga. I'm only set up to +2 because the first coughing went for smokescreen right away. Because of this, Body Slam can't get the one-shot. We also got a critical hit, which doesn't help. Wheezing then goes for self-destruct and gets a critical hit, one-shotting me. I do win on the next attempt, but the resetless run is gone. Let's jump ahead to Lance, which to this point I've skipped the Victory Road candy again, skipping a total of 4 for this run. I fixed the mistake in my first run, teaching Blizzard before the battle, but make another. I set up to +2 and then go for Body Slam, which leaves Gyarados in red health. I should have just went for another Body Slam to finish it, but I thought Lance would have used a Hyper Potion, so I try to squeeze in another Swords Dance. Unfortunately, I get punished, with a critical hit Hyper Beam knocking me out, giving us our second reset. And in the very next battle, Hyper Beam crits me right away, leaving me at 23 HP, but because of Recharge, I can set up another Swords Dance, finish off his Gyarados, and then Blizzard sweeps his Dragons. And I wish I could say more about the champion fight, but it's just set up to +6 and hope you don't crit the Venusaur, which we don't here. In its follow-up attempt, Samurott clocks in with a real time of 36 minutes and 33 seconds, with 2 resets at level 59, with an in-game time of 2 hours and 22 minutes. While I did save time from the first run and finished at a lower level, I was hoping to beat Rapidash's results, but hey, this was still a fun run with a great Mon. And if you want to do your own run with Samurott, I do make the patch files available for members, which I need to upload this one and a few others, so if that interests you, consider joining. I'm gonna get to work on the next one. I have a contender in mind that can possibly dethrone Rapidash. I'll catch you in my next one. Take care, everybody.